On today's episode of Locked On Suns, our three strongest takes about this team heading into the 2023-24 season. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Suns your first listen. A bonus Thursday episode. We're supposed to be at 3 times a week, but too many guests, too much to talk about. The season coming right on strong. So we are here on a Thursday. So appreciate you guys all joining us. Just search Locked On Suns wherever you get your podcast to get this show in your feed 3 times a week for the rest of the month and daily come September. Become an everydayer. Get locked onto the Suns. There's going to be no shortage of stuff. We are right around the corner from the season. So we're on YouTube. We're everywhere that you get podcasts. Brandon Dueñas is joining us as he does every week. It's a little bit of a delay thanks to some restaurant or maybe bowling alley that shall not be named that stole our Sunday slot from us, Brandon, but you're back, you're healthy, you're good to go. And we're giving our 3 strongest takes about the Phoenix Suns this season. We're going to go back and forth. We have not told each other what these are, and I will start us off. I think Devin Booker will be a first-team All-NBA player this season. It's a pretty simple one, but it has a couple of angles to it that I believe in. But that's it. I think Book will be incredible this year. I think the production and everything that he did in last year's playoffs will not be, 40-plus minutes a game levels, but that he is that good. And that all will carry over, and he will be probably the best player overall on this team this year. And he will be on that team when the awards are listed off at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to disagree with that. Being a Suns fan, but I know on the national scale, a lot of national people are kind of writing off all of Durant, Booker, and Beal just for the reason of them taking away from each other in a sense. So I feel like that's kind of, when it comes to awards like that, individual awards, it's really just going to be predicated based on how the team's doing. So if they're the number 1 or 2 seed in the West and things are clicking and Booker's as efficient as we know he can be, and healthy, that's really the major key with him. Like if he's healthy, he's going to make it. I mean, we saw the Lovely played out last season, season before when he entered the MVP conversation, leading a 64-win team, best player on that team, and made all first team there. So I think it's definitely in the cards as long as things go well.
Health is the part of it that has to be mentioned,
Yep.
and I think we expect him to have the ball in his hands more. We expect that we know he has the ability to be efficient. We know he has the ability to score and play make and all the stuff that will tally up big numbers for him. I would expect some triple doubles this year more often than he has in the past. The defense will be there, maybe not quite as intense as it had to be in the postseason, but we know what he's capable of defensively when he locks in. It's the 65 game threshold that's there now for these awards, and also obviously that they're positionless. So feels too early to break down and predict, okay, he has to be better than this guy and that guy and whatever. But I would expect, if you're looking at last year's All-NBA team, all of Giannis, Luka, Embiid, SGA, Tatum, and of course Jokic will be in the mix. So that doesn't include Steph, who could play the right amount of games. And probably that's kind of the grouping, I would say, the kind of clear first tier. Not all those guys will play 65 games.
I can't let you get away with this. I can't let you get it. You have to pick one. He has to replace someone. There has to be some a little bit of a spicy take in here, So who's
I
think
think that, I think last year that both Shea and Donovan benefited from some injuries and some down seasons from different guys and whatever. And so I think Booker's better than both of those players. And I think if all things are equal, he would get votes. I think his team will be better than both the Thunder and the Cavs. And so if you just told me swap Jokic in for Embiid in that grouping, and then I would say put Booker in for Shea, I could see that being the first team. Giannis, Luka, Jokic, Booker, Tatum. I think that could easily be it.
Okay. Yeah, we're in alignment there. That's what I would roll with too at this point, with the way too early all first team predictions.
The thing is, so many of these guys are just not at the point in their careers where playing that many games matters. Like, I could see some weird results. I know everybody's talked about this back when the CBA passed, but I just, like, you already have some of that with like Julius Randle being on this team, both of the Kings guys. Like, we already sort of get it, but the fact that it's an actual rule now, I think you're just going to have some fluke stuff. But if Booker gets to 65, I think the production and everything will be there. So he should be a really solid candidate. What's your first take?
And I just want to add to that real quick is also with just the voting, it feels like the goalpost shift every year too, with what matters, what doesn't. Does making the playoffs matter? Like, is that a thing we care about anymore? I guess not. So I'm just curious to see what the narratives are this upcoming season and how things change, because it's just wild to me that every year they seem to have different criteria. I mean, you could have made
a case Booker and Durant should have been all NBA this year, right? I mean, I get it with Durant changing teams and the two pretty significant injuries, but he did get votes, and Booker, like, his whatever 50 or so games that he played were better than a lot of the guys who did make it. So it is strange. I guess the 65 games, at least like one thing is locked into place, but yeah, you're right. Winning, production, efficiency, defense, whatever. It's sort of like whoever you're trying to make the case for, you're going to say that thing, and then it is what it is from there. But what's your first one?
All right. So my first one is a little bit specific, but I think the 5-man lineup of Gordon, Beal, Booker, Durant, and Ayton will have one of the greatest, I'll say, top 3 offensive rating in NBA history this season. When those 5 are on the court together, like, I think it's going to be one of the, I'd have to go back and like see how far back that even goes, with how far they track that. But I think there will be some growing pains for sure. But I think that's going to be one of the greatest offenses we're going to see, and it's just going to mesh extremely well. There's going to be questions with ball handling, with who takes what shot when, but I think all the guys are unselfish. They can all create their own shot. They can hit open shots. And then you factor in DeAndre just finishing everything around the rim. Like, it's going to be one of the most optimal offenses we've ever seen. So that's how high I am on that specific unit offensively. I'm not sure if I'd close with them all the time defensively, because there's some questions there, but that, I think, like, that unit's just going to be a ton of fun. And I hope we get to see them a lot.
So this is weird. I found a list from last year, but for some reason it's filtering in a way where it seems really low, but I guess it's right. The number 1 offensive rating lineup last year was the Warriors' death lineup, their new one, Wiggins, Draymond, Clay, Steph, and Looney. 128 offensive rating. And this is minimum 200 minutes played. So it's filtering out like the, weird, exceptions, but I think the Suns, that 5-man unit, 128 is not crazy. That's only like a little bit higher than the best actual whole team offense in the league. So I think the Suns could get higher than that for sure with Gordon on the court. Yeah.
And that's not just from last year. I'm saying like all the time, like you could rack up all the, last 20 years or however long it goes back of that rating and just compare those numbers. I think they're going to be somewhere in the top 3. Like, that's how special I think they will be. There, like I said, there will be some growing pains early on that, maybe if we could just substitute October and November, just like kind of take those months out to let their chemistry develop and then add a filter to that, I'd probably be right. But the chemistry thing is going to take some time, but that's I think, like I said, it's just going to be a really fun offense to watch, and they're going to click so well off each other. Like, it's the only thing that could stop this team is really injuries at this point, or egos getting in the way, which I don't really see that being an issue with the guys they have.
Yeah, I have a feeling, I'm clicking through all these years, and I have a feeling, just because the offense has exploded so much, that lineup I just listed probably is, in terms of, again, more than 200 minutes together, the best one ever, because pretty much every year a new team breaks the record, and their best lineup's probably going to break that record too. A funny one, though, is 2019-20, which obviously has the bubble included. Interesting. The Suns with Rubio, Booker, Bridges, Oubre, Ayton. That lineup was the second best offense in the NBA that season. Isn't that crazy? But
wow,
the best one, the best 5-man unit offensively in the league was Lillard, McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, Trevor Ariza, Hassan Whiteside.
Yikes.
So
is that just a down year for the NBA, like offensively, or
what's going on
way?
Here? Yeah,
I think the sample size probably.
Yeah, I'm chalking it up to between the stoppage and everything, the guys that didn't come to the bubble, the teams that weren't even invited to the bubble, everything was just so weird that probably has a lot to do with it. But yeah, it's a weird clustering at the top of this list. No Lakers lineups because they were obviously more of a defensive team, and Boston doesn't show up until like 7th or 8th. But yeah, I mean, thinking about it that way, if the benchmark is 128, it's really like, I mean, it's obviously really huge, but it's not like unprecedented. So I think the Suns can surpass that. Right behind them was the Nuggets starters, and then the Celtics starters were pretty much actually in the Knicks with Brunson, Grimes, Barrett, Randall, Robinson. That was a close, really kind of tied with the Nuggets and the Celtics, which that's a surprise because that team is not thought of as an offensive juggernaut. But yeah, I think the Suns should outpace a lot of those. That Nuggets lineup would probably be my other pick. But let's move on to our next strongest takes for the 2023-24 NBA season. First, a quick word from Ibotta. It's officially summer and a new season means new clothes, but your closet shouldn't be the only thing growing when you make those purchases. And now you can also watch your cash back grow with each purchase when you use Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop. Get your cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 back per year, which could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, a flight you've been eyeing, the game you've been dying to go to. Yeah, I think upstairs at Suns games might cost $120, to be honest, this year, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much, but Ibotta gives you real cash back right to your bank account, plus PayPal or gift cards to places like Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 into your account just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, use the code LOCKED when you register. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use that code LOCKED when you register. Keeping it rolling. Let's go to take number 2. I will give you the floor, Brandon. What is your next strongest? Are you ranking them? Is this one a little less strong than the last one, or how did you think about it? Either way, you're up.
This one's definitely stronger. I didn't want to start with it, get a little too crazy. But I think FIBA just has me, on Deandre Ayton Island right now. So,
oh man, do I have to hold on to something? I feel like this is actually. I wasn't brave enough to do this one. Yeah,
you might have to. So I'm just gonna go all in on DA right now. Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and But this one, I think DeAndre is going to be the Suns' third All-Star. I think he's going to make it over Bradley Beal, and it's going to come down to positions a little bit. And I'm just kind of looking through. Obviously, it is positionless in terms of the starters, and they're getting a little more innovative with that. But I think when you look at the bigs, there's a good chance Anthony Davis will probably be hurt at some point, and it seems like an annual tradition with him. Gobert, you can't really rely on. There's Sabonis and obviously the Joker, who's kind of a shoe-in. But if the Suns are the number 1 seed, they come out hot, and DeAndre is looking like a new man without Monty Williams here and just playing with that force. Like, I could see that being one of those narratives early on that catches fire and boils through the winter. I don't know if the consistency will be there the whole season, but just I think that momentum coming from what he just did with his guy Gordon, I could just see him coming in just with a different mindset and it carrying over right away. So that's going to be my hot take here, and just throw it out there. I was going to present it a little bit differently and say the Suns will have 3 All-Stars and the third one will be Ayton, but I just had to get right into it and just kind of throw it out there.
I like it, and I don't think I can get there with you, but what I will say is That was one of my strongest takes last summer. Honestly, I did a whole show where I was like, it's right there for him. And it was very similar to what you just said, which is that the West is weak. Towns ended up getting hurt on top of everything else. I think you wouldn't have necessarily predicted the Sabonis breakout, but I also would say you're not positive that that's going to happen this year again, that he's going to be so productive, so consistent, and that that this team will be, the Kings, will be good enough. So it's all there. What I want to ask you on that note, though, is what if the Suns didn't have like the worst injury month of all time in December of last season, and Ayton had maintained a similar level of production? Do you think he would have gotten some actual consideration? Because he was 19 and 10 with a 62 true shooting, a 25% usage pre-All-Star break, which is basically pre-All-Star break. So exactly the voting doesn't happen at the end of that, but pretty much those are great numbers. But the team was just so weird and bad, and then the Durant trade and everything, that he was never going to get on. But when you just look at it from a stat standpoint, if they were winning, I feel like he might have had a shot at it. So it's not crazy to think he could again this year, considering his position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a real discussion for a while, especially in those kind of late winter months, like heading into the new year. It really felt like he had a pretty strong case with like one of the stretches he was on early in the season. And it's such a long season. Like a lot of people forget some of these storylines that happen. Just you kind of look at what through recency bias or just that sour taste in your mouth, whether it's with a Kogi or Ayton or whoever. Like there's certain players that had stretches last year that were like pretty damn encouraging. So I think that's kind of one reason why. And a lot of people love the shiny new toy or the redemption story or however you want to frame it in terms of narrative driving. So if we get an Ayton that just comes out and plays to his potential or even close to it, like I think that's going to sell. And that's what the All-Star game really is at the end of the day. It's about building those narratives, storylines, whatever you want to call it. And Bam Adebayo is a great example of this. Like a lot of people kind of gave up on him a little bit for a stretch in Miami, and obviously had a great playoff run, and he has his moments where he can fade away as well. But I think at the center position, it's so demanding and it's so easy to kind of flip on you that when you have a rough stretch, everyone just kind of writes you off. So I think if DA comes in locked in and engaged, like he has a pretty good shot, and he had a decent shot last year as well, to your point.
Yeah, it feels like the Ayton slot that he could have gotten last year ended up going to Jaren Jackson. And you could say like, oh, well, Ayton could just make it ahead of him this year. I don't really think that's going to happen. I think Jaren is going to really, he already has broken out. He's the defensive player of the year, but like, I think what he showed in the playoffs offensively, and hopefully he gets, another boost from this FIBA experience. Like, I think Jaren's kind of there to stay. So aside from him, you probably would look at like Lauri Markkanen made the team last year. Is he going to slide in there again? You had Paul George, who I don't think technically made it as like a front court guy, but he was listed as a forward. Zion made it in and then didn't play. He was voted in as a starter, which is a little bit of a cheat there. So it's not going to be easy. I don't think I would say it will happen, but as you said, the case is not crazy, and I like the boldness. Mine is a little shorter, so we don't have to spend too much time on it. Bradley Beal will shoot 40+% from deep this season. That doesn't sound crazy, but if you actually think about it, he has not shot better than 40% since John Wall was like at his peak. It's been a very long time, and one of the storylines of Beal coming to Phoenix and being available on the trade market in the first place was, is he falling off 30% in 21-22? It's sky is falling. He did shoot 40% 3 times in his first 5 seasons, but not since. I just think he's going to feast on open looks. I believe in his ability to mold and morph into a more off-ball role. And I think if he's getting open shots, whether it's on the move or spot up, I trust his ability to make them. And that all adds up to a really big improvement from behind the arc, and I expect it to happen. So that's a pretty big increase. He was only at 36.5 last year, but I believe in it. I'm locking it in.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I think the Suns offense, like I said, some of those like historic level numbers, like if he's shooting 40% and, you have guys like Utah and Damian Lee in the corners, like it's just going to be such an efficient offense that it's just really comes down to, do you want to give up an open three to guys that are going to hit 40+% from three? Do you want to give Deandre Ayton, who finishes nearly everything around the rim, a look? Are you going to let Booker and KD get to their spot in the mid range? Like there's just so many ways they could beat you. So yeah, I like that. I think Beal's going to have, he's just going to thrive, obviously, off ball. Kind of like everyone says that Shamet role, but it's really going to be more like the Chris Paul / Shamet role in terms of the looks he's going to get that we would see Chris Paul pass up on the wing or perimeter.
I would even say, like, in some ways, it could be the Devin Booker role,
True, yeah.
The places we've seen him operate in this offense for the past couple of years under Kevin Young, I could see Beal benefiting from running some of that stuff off ball screens and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be kind of a mix of all three of those guys in terms of the looks they're going to get. How he's utilized will probably be a little bit different than Shamet or Paul for obvious reasons, because he's a better basketball player and could do a little bit more off the ball, and you could do more stuff with him off screens. So yeah, I like that prediction a lot. I think it's definitely feasible, and between him and Utah, like I think they're going to have a real competition for who ends up, and Damian Lee too. Like you have so many guys that could probably hit close to 45+% from three. So that's just something that we desperately need around Booker and Durant.
So my next one actually continues on the shooting note, but I do just want to mention that I didn't want to do any negative takes on this because that's boring and makes people upset. But the more that I was trying to think, because I wanted to do a defensive prediction for Beal as well, kind of do 2-in-1 here. I'm nervous about him being the primary point of attack defender. My whole Keita Bates-Diop is going to be, a real part of this 5-man unit in the starting lineup and be a revelation this year. Maybe be this year's kind of Bruce Brown or one of them in terms of guy who rejuvenates himself and really gets a big payday based on a championship type run. Relies on Beal being that guy at the point of attack, and it just really has never been there. So the more that I was tossing that around in my mind, I was getting nervous. I'm not going to lie. I think asking Beal to do that at a championship level might be a lot, but I don't know. I don't want to get too negative, but I do just want to throw it out if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something to consider. And I think you could kind of look at the same thing with Booker. And if you want to play Gordon too, with Beal and Booker in crunch time, like there's going to be some matchup situations that are going to be tough defensively. Like they're just really going to have to, it's not going to come down to like shutting people down one-on-one defensively. It's more of kind of that team effort, just, everyone being in the right spots, trusting each other, making the right rotations. Like that's what a great defense is. Like you could have all the talent in the world, but if you're in the wrong spots, you're not communicating and you're not one collective unit, then it doesn't really matter. You can only get so far. So I think that's why Vogel's higher. And I said this back, you could rewind the tape back to an off-season podcast before they hired Vogel. Is like, that's part of the reason I wanted a defensive-minded coach. Because I think offensively, there's so much you could do with this team. That was also before Beal. It kind of makes things a little bit even easier offensively to scheme for. I shouldn't say easier. That there's going to be pretty complex, but just in terms of the talent they have, you can kind of offset that. So,
sure.
But yeah, defensively, there's definitely going to be some question marks. So don't blame you.
Ready for the preseason, to be honest. Ready to even honestly hear what Vogel says, because we have not really gotten a lot from him since he took over outside of like, yeah, excited, everything, but we'll see. All right. I have another shooting take, and it involves some of the players we've already discussed, so we'll get to that next, as well as Brandon, I think, has 2 more. We'll do that after a quick break. All right. I will start us off. Mine is pretty short here as well. It is just one of Bates-Diop, Okogie, or Goodwin will be an above-average playable spot-up shooter. And that might sound like a pretty tiny thing, but when you think about the fact that Eubanks, feel pretty confident that's a rotation player. You have a lot of guys on this roster that you don't have to worry about their shooting. And if just one of those 3 can consistently knock down their shots, I think it could be more than one. But I'm just going to say that one of them will do it. the rotation starts to click into place, your defensive lineups start to click into place, and everything just feels a lot more comfortable. So that's my take. Obviously, the most likely guy to do it is Bates Diop, but really, when you think about it, Okogie has 0 seasons of doing this, and Goodwin and Bates Diop have like half of one or one on bad teams. So for even one of these guys to actually be a trustworthy shooter on a great team would be pretty big for them, but also obviously for the team. So there we go. Did I not bring in enough with that one? I'm already regretting. I feel like that was too small of a take.
Yeah, I think 2 out of 3 would have been a little more spicy. But it's still, I mean, honestly though, like if one of those 3 does that, that's all you really need. So it's really just a matter of who it's going to be. It might be a different guy every night, but it'd be a hell of a lot easier for Vogel if it was just one guy, so he can kind of lock in his rotation, especially come playoff times. Like if you know you can trust Bates Diop to hit corner threes, or even Okogie, like both those guys, first of all, if either of them are shooting at a decent clip and they win that starting spot on the team and close out games, like with the spotlight on Phoenix, like those guys are going to get paid. Like, yeah, they're technically under 2-year deals, but they're really just those pseudo 2-year deals where they have the player option for the second year. So I think there's a good chance that at least one of those 2 guys, maybe, I mean, even Eubanks and Utah are both on those types of contracts too. Like I think probably 2 of those 4 guys are probably going to get paid and opt out and go somewhere else this summer. So
yeah, I think 2 out of 3 would have been a better content, but I think one of them, and what I mean by one of them being a consistent shooter is more than just it changes every night. Like I mean that one of those guys will be a legitimate every night, you can trust them to make their open shots type of player.
That would be huge. That would be massive.
Yeah. And when you think about it that way, it's like, again, Eubanks, I think, will just be the backup center. And Eric Gordon, we know, is going to play. So that's already 6 guys. You would expect probably, Watanabe to be a part of the rotation. And so you're really just looking for one more beyond that. And so if, again, one of them can do it, then that becomes the guy. So there's your rotation. So that's kind of my thinking there. I think the most likely is Bates Diop, but we'll see. What's your next one?
All right. So I'll start with the shooting one as well. I think Utah is going to, I've said this a couple of times already on the pod, I'm sure, but I think he's going to break the 50% 3-point mark this season. It's going to be one of those years where people are just kind of like waiting for that percent to come down. They'll see it at like 52% in November, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, it'll come down. Like he's hot. He's getting a lot of open looks, and it kind of stays there. And he makes it to 3-point shootout. He won't win the 3-point shootout, but he'll get close. He'll make us proud. But yeah, I think he's going to be hovering right around that 50% clip from 3. I think he's going to be an absolute sniper, getting wide open looks with his size. He's going to fit right in this offense so seamlessly. So I'm all on board the Utah train.
Last year, the leader was Luke Kennard at 49, and then no one else was at 45. So there usually is somebody. And we know Watanabe has the ability, and honestly, most of his shots will be spot up, so it's not even the same level of difficulty as somebody like Kennard or obviously Steph or Joe Harris or players like that who are up, Buddy Hield, who were up there last year. So the path is clear for him for sure. I'm skeptical. I haven't been included. I don't want to say skeptical. I guess I'm giving him short shrift. I haven't been putting Watanabe in like he's a lock for the rotation grouping, but I know you've been much higher on him than me all off season, and I probably should just get over it and say that he will be. But I guess he's the guy that I've seen the least. So some of it's just like my own personal bias of like, I just want to know what I'm getting. And he seems the least familiar to me, but that's just me. So yeah, I should probably be converted to the church of Utah soon, because otherwise I'll be behind everybody else when it finally arrives. Do you have one more for us?
Yes, this one is kind of just obviously, since we're being optimistic and everything, like I'll just go on the record.
I mean, if the sickos who are still here 30 minutes in are listening, then they want it. So we might as well.
True. All right. Your 2024 champions are the Phoenix Suns. I'm just going to go out there and I've never called a championship for like my team in any sport ever. But this year, why not? We have Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, and a great supporting cast, new coach. It's time. Like we just need to break this curse. It's Matt Ishbia is here. Sarver's gone. It's just time to win a damn championship. Like I know, obviously there's going to be a lot of hurdles they have to go through to get there, but I'm looking at the West. Like if you could just take Denver down, I'm not too threatened by anyone else at this point. There's definitely some tough teams that I'm not saying they're going to be a cakewalk and health is huge and all that. But I'm not going to apologize for it. I think the Suns are going to win the championship. That's my final hot take.
I love it. The league is wide open. The Harden Embiid stuff in Philly is just making it more and more so. Kristaps Porzingis has plantar fascia to start the season. The East, it makes no sense. Who knows where Damian Lillard's going to be? The Nuggets don't have any depth, and the West is just as crazy as it was. Maybe the Warriors are a little better this season than last year, but that is there. It felt like in 2021 when the Suns made it, it was like, of course, from it's really hard to get there standpoint, that was a missed opportunity. I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't, but I think there was a little bit of a feeling of like the West will never be this open again. You need to seize your moment. I don't think people expected Booker to keep leveling up the way that he has and keep their title window open basically as long as he's in his prime, which that happened. And then also, yeah, actually the league did stay just as wide open as it was in 2021. There's no pandemic anymore making it that way, but it's still that way. I think just with the CBA rules and yeah, with the CBA rules and everything else, it just kind of feels like the league created that environment, and I don't think that's going to change. So especially not this year. The rosters are already set. We know what's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, picking anybody's not crazy, but I think deferring to, hey, the team with 2 top 10 guys and another potential all-star, and in your strong take case, 2 potential other all-stars, like, yeah, why would you not pick them? So I haven't thought about it enough, and I always feel nervous picking, like you said. I'll never forget 2015 when everybody and their mom in the NFL media said that the Cardinals were going to win the Super Bowl, and I just was crushed when they were like, what were they, like 9-7, 10-6 that year, and it didn't even get close. So I don't do it either, but I might be there by the time I actually put my prediction down come like whatever, September, October when we do that.
Yeah, no, being humble and superstitious isn't working out for me, so I might as well just throw it out there and say, let's win a championship, manifest it, and hopefully this clip ages well, and it's not something we could look back on and cringe at.
That's what this show is for, right? It's strongest takes. We're not doing things we think are for sure gonna, be accomplished 2 months in that are easy targets. We're not doing, the Suns will be a top 4 seed. Like, no, that's ridiculous. So yes, this is the time for it. No one, the crazies who might clip something or make a mockery of you are probably not listening on August 24th. So it's all right, but we'll have more predictions by the time the season gets closer, more like 1 through 8 in the West and all that type of stuff that's fun to do right before the season starts. But yes, Brandon's getting out in front of it, and he'll be the one to say, I told you so when it happens next summer. But that'll wrap us up for the day. We will have Aaron Edwards to close out the week on Friday. Tomorrow, for those of you listening, definitely go back and listen to the Michael Schwartz episode on Wednesday. I meant to say that earlier. Special guest, Big Get, who I've been trying to land for a while. So we did a fun game with him. Good takes, good conversation about the Suns. And in the not too distant future, I'm bringing back 13 questions that will define the Phoenix Suns season. I did it 2 years ago. I didn't do it last year, but it feels like a good time for it. 13 obviously being an ode to the great Steve Nash. So we will have that series to get the season previewed. And hit follow, subscribe, get all of it in your feed every single day. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.